Hello everyone, you're welcome to today's lecture on farmer field schools. So farmer field schools can also be abbreviated as FFS. And we see that farmer field schools have been used as one of the approaches in agriculture extension in quite a number of countries. So by definition, farmer field school approach is an innovative, participatory, and interactive approach that emphasizes problem solving and discovery-based learning. This approach has been practiced for many years and in many parts of the world, like I have mentioned, and wherever they have been practiced, we see that they have been considered to be very successful. So this method emphasizes group observation, group discussion, group analysis, group presentation, and collective decision making and actions. So a farmer field school is usually time bound, and it normally takes place for as long as one production season or cropping season or a year. The farmer field school also involves a group of farmers who range between 20 and 30, and this group normally meets once a week in a local field setting under the guidance of a trained facilitator who can either be an extension staff or a farmer facilitator. Now the groups of farmers, who are normally 5 in number, are set or are given plots to observe and compare for the cropping season. Normally one of the plots follows conventional methods that are locally used, while the other is used to experiment what could be considered as a best practice. So as they do their observations, they normally look at key elements of the agroecosystem by measuring plant development, by taking samples of insect pests, weeds, and diseased plants, or by comparing characteristics of the soil in the different experimental units. At the end of the week, in a weekly meeting, these members present their findings in a plenary session, and then they discuss and plan for the coming weeks. So what is the purpose of a farmer field school? We see that a farmer field school aims at building the capacity of farmers to 1. Analyze their production systems, to identify problems, and to test possible solutions. However, the farmer field school also encourages participants who are farmers to adopt practices and technologies that are more suitable for the farming system in which they are. And this is according to FAO 2003C. Then now let's look at the objectives of a farmer field school. The first objective is introducing good agricultural practices of the selected crop, then improving knowledge of the crop cultivation based on IPM or integrated pest management and other concepts, and finally empowering farmers to be decision makers. So the farmer field school should ensure that at the end, farmers are introduced to good agricultural practices, which can be spacing, weeding, fertilizer regimes, pruning, and so on, or help improve the knowledge that farmers have on cultivation of crops based on given concepts like integrated pest and disease management. So now let's look at the principles of the farmer field school approach. Principle number 1 is that participants decide what to study. And we see that the decision of what to study rests in the members or the farmers in the field school, and not on the facilitator or the extension agency. So in a farmer field school, we should ensure that the information we give is relevant to the local needs by allowing the farmers to decide what to study. We also see that the facilitator's job is to guide participants through the learning process and help them have the required hands-on experience. And the second principle is learning is by doing, or what we call experiential learning. We see that it is widely accepted that people learn best by doing. That's the saying that tell me what to do, or tell me and I forget, show me and I remember, involve me and I understand. Okay, so if we want the farmers to understand and to practice what has been learnt in the field school, then we should ensure that we involve them and ensure that they have hands-on experience. However, if we just tell them what to do or just show them, they might not be able to practice on their own when they go back to their fields. We also see that discovery-based learning is a very essential part of the farmer field school because it helps participants to develop a feeling of ownership. So when they test these different technologies and they discover which of them is most appropriate, then they will own that finding and they'll be confident that when they go back to their fields, they'll be able to get the same results. So the third principle of the farmer field school approach is that learning is field or enterprise based. And like I earlier said, we require a field where farmers can experiment from without incurring any personal risks. So in case if it is an agriculture based study, the fields are located in a convenient distance from all members, so all members can comfortably come without any complaints. We see that participants also produce their own learning materials. They make their own drawings, illustrations, signs, okay? And the advantage is that all these are homemade, okay? And they can be consistent over time. We also see that they are not expensive to develop and they are owned by the learners. So learners are very comfortable because they are involved in the process of making their learning materials. The fourth principle is learning is based on facilitation and not teaching. So for us to foster the learner-centered process, the facilitator remains in the background, listening to the farmers, asking them questions to explain more about their experiences, and also encouraging them to explore more in the field and present their ideas. So it is not the facilitator standing up and telling the farmers what they are supposed to do and teaching them. However, it is the learners who are in charge of the entire learning process. So what the facilitator does is to stimulate the members to think, to observe, to analyze, and to discover answers for themselves, okay? So you don't tell them everything. They are supposed to discover so that they are able to own their decisions at the end of the process. So in the discussion, the facilitator contributes and moderates the group to reach a consensus on what action should follow, especially after they have identified given problems in the field. So principle number 5 is a problem-based curriculum-driven process. So the curriculum that we use in the field is problem-based, and it is not as strict as the curriculum we have in the formal setting of schools. Okay, so the problems we find in a given field are the ones that will determine what we study in a given season. So if this season we find a challenge of fertility, then we will look at fertility. If we find a problem of pests and diseases, that's what we will cover. So now let's look at the characteristics of the field schools or the farmer field schools. The first one is farmers as experts. So we see that farmers learn by doing, and therefore we see that they carry out for themselves the various activities related to the particular enterprise they want to study and learn. Okay, so by them conducting this exercise and conducting their own comparative studies of the different treatments or different practices, they become experts on that particular practice they are investigating. So by the end of the field school, the farmers have the experience to conduct a given practice, or to undertake a given practice that has been selected to be the best. Okay, then 2 is training follows a seasonal cycle. So we see that training is related to the seasonal cycle of the practice being investigated. So for annual crops, this would extend from land preparation to harvesting. And then for livestock, this could be from calf to calf, from the time when a cow gives birth to the time when that calf that was produced also produces another calf. Okay, and then for poultry, it can be from chicken to chicken. So we monitor from laying to the season when the laid eggs hatch, and then they also get an ability to lay eggs and then hatch them. Okay, so it extends to a given cycle, or the entire process of the entire life cycle of a given crop or animal we are talking about. So characteristic number 4 is group capacity building, and we see that through the trainings, farmers are able to get or acquire better communication skills, better problem solving skills, and they're also able to learn different discussion methods. Okay, so we see that for the success of the activities in a farmer field school, the farmers should be able to communicate their findings, and they should also apply effective leadership skills and teamwork. Okay, then characteristic number 5 is regular group meetings. We see that farmers meet at agreed regular intervals. We said weekly, but the farmers might also choose to sit every 2 weeks depending on the enterprise cycle. Okay, so for annual crops, meetings may occur weekly or bi-weekly throughout the cropping season. Okay, and for other farm activities of practices like forestry management practices, the time between each meeting would depend on what specific activities need to be done. Okay, so for as long as the meetings are regular, then the farmer field schools will be very successful. The interval will depend on a given activity. So how does the farmer field school benefit farmers? 1, it strengthens their observation capability and increases knowledge ownership through discovery-based learning. So because they discover what they discover in the plots, they also discuss what they have discovered and decide the next course of action. We see that they own the knowledge because they are the ones who have discovered on their own. They are not just told. And then 2, building self-confidence and enhancing decision-making capacity. So the confidence of the farmers and their ability to make decisions in a team is also enhanced through the farmer field school. We also see minimizing risks of experimenting with new practices. So farmers, for example, if there is a new variety, farmers do not take up the entire risk by trying that given crop in their field. They first experiment it as a group, so the risk is reduced. By the time they choose to adopt, they're already sure that what they are going to adopt is actually the right thing to adopt. Okay, so the other benefit of farmer field schools is that they help change deep-rooted beliefs and practices by assisting farmers recognize their misunderstandings. So if farmers were believing in a certain practice which is currently not the right practice to use for a given crop, then you're able to give them a chance to compare what is believed to be right and what you actually know is the best practice. So they compare the two, and by themselves they are able to discover that your recommendation is performing better than what they believe is the right practice. And then finally, the farmer field schools also help develop problem solving capabilities of the farmers. So farmers are able to learn how to solve their own problems. So even when they are out of their field school, they'll be able to identify given problems in their fields, and they'll know how to take care of them on their own. Okay, so what are the operational requirements of a farmer field school? Number one, we require a functional group of committed farmers who range between 20 to 30. Number two, we require a group of experienced farmer field school facilitators who have the knowledge of how to facilitate a farmer field school. And then we also require appropriate fund release mechanisms and effective logistics so that all the requirements are available in the right time. Then finally, we also require a field that is easily accessible by all the members. So now let's look at the fundamental theories underpinning the farmer field school approach. Theory number one is theory of adult learning, which we also call andragogy. So Malcolm Knowles in 1968 used a constructivist idea to develop the theory of adult learning, which we call andragogy. And andragogy actually applies to education of adult learners vis-a-vis pedagogy, which refers to education of children and youth. So in andragogy, we have 5 assumptions. Assumption 1 is independent self-concept, where we assume that farmers or the adult learners are responsible for the decisions they make, and they are responsible for their lives. Assumption number 2 is readiness to learn. We also assume that these learners are ready to learn. So we focus on learning things that they need to know and are able to do as a means of coping effectively with their real life assumptions. Okay. The other assumption is that adult learning experience is available. Okay. So we believe that, or we want to assume that these adult learners have accumulated a lot of experiences throughout their life, which will improve their experience of learning. The other assumption we make is orientation to learning. So we assume that the farmers have a problem that they are trying to address. Okay, so like we said earlier, we have a curriculum that is based on the problems or centered on the problems that the farmers are actually facing. So these farmers should have immediate interest of applying the knowledge that they learn so that they can solve the problem at hand. Then the last one is motivation to learn. So the farmers should have something of immediate need or internal pressures that they want to solve. For example, quality of life, self-esteem, or job satisfaction, rather than just having external pressures, motivators. So it should be within the farmers. The farmers should be motivated so that no one pushes them around when they are coming for farmer field school activities. Therefore, A facilitator in a farmer field school should take in account the following traits of the adult learners. The first one is that they learn best by sharing their experiences. The second one is that they learn throughout their lives. So don't assume that what you're teaching them is very, very new. They have their own experiences and they have been learning throughout their lives. They have multiple roles and responsibilities in learning. So every farmer has a role to play. Participation in learning is voluntary. So you should not force a farmer to share their experiences if they are not interested. Or you should not force them to undertake a given activity if they don't have the interest. Then they like their learning to be problem oriented, because they actually want to solve particular immediate problems that they have in their own fields. And then they prefer to be directed towards their specific situations. Then the second theory is the Kolb's theory of experiential learning. And we see that by definition, experiential learning is a process by which the experience of the learners is reflected upon and new insights or learning emerge and they are tested. Okay, so through this process we have learners reflect on the experience they have, and then they get new insights which they actually test. So David Kolb developed this simplified and harmonized model of experiential learning, in which the process begins with an experience. Like we've said, the farmers have a lot of experience, followed by reflection. So the farmers reflect on this experience. We also see that after this reflection, the farmers actually come up with new hypotheses or new beliefs that they test in a new situation. We also see that the model is a recurring cycle within which the learners test new concepts and modify them. Okay, so they keep on getting new ideas. If, for example, it is an organic pesticide, they can keep on thinking about other ingredients that they actually know about, and they also test them in the process. At the end of the entire process, they can be able to get a much more effective organic pesticide. So this is a diagram showing the process we've been talking about. Farmers have experience which they reflect upon, and then they come up with new concepts which they experiment on. Now this diagram shows the steps through which the farmer field school is implemented. We start with groundworking or preparations, then training of facilitators who can be extension staff. Then we have regular farmer field school meetings. Remember I said these can be either weekly or they can be bi-weekly, depending on the kind of crop or practice that is being experimented on. And then we have evaluations take place or experimentation. This is followed by field days. Then we have graduation of the farmers, and then we give chance to them to run their own farmer field school. But at the end of the entire process, we follow up, or the facilitators follow up to see that actually what the farmers have been doing is exactly what they were told to do. So how do we ensure that there is sustainability of a farmer field school group? One, we should ensure that the group goes through all the stages of group development. We should not just ambush a village and then we look for farmers and then we tell them to form a group. a group should go through the entire natural process of development. So by the time we go there, we should have a group that has members who trust each other, believe each other, and respect each other. Then having viable focal enterprises which have sustaining income generation. So this group should have at least some activities which bring in income, because at a certain time these farmers will need a source of income. Then being cohesive, and when we have members agree with each other. If you find a group that already has misunderstandings, then the farmer field school will not be sustainable. Then having savings and lending activities functioning properly. We all know that in most of these farmer groups there is a lending and saving element. But if you find when they already have issues related to their lending activities, if there is already money that has been misappropriated, then we might also have farmer field school activities affected. Then belonging or having linkages with other functional networks, associations, or farmer institutions. We believe that through cooperations, the farmer groups are able to get access to things that they do not have access to. For example, market, better trainings, credit. So these farmer field school groups should have linkages or should have membership in higher associations or farmer institutions, either at village level or sub-county level, for example, and district level. And then there should also be functional public-private partnerships. So these farmer groups should at least have partnerships with the local government and other government institutions. Thank you so much for listening, and in case you have any questions about this topic, kindly send them to me through my email address or through the learning management system. May God bless you.